Chapter 9. What Do You Mean? In 1947, only 2 years after the end of World War II, an unassuming, loving, and humble man decided to release a book to others. His one true desire was to help people to get through some of the tough patches of their lives. He wasn't seeking money. He wasn't seeking fame. He wasn't seeking recognition. Simply to help others in a unique way that he knew only he could. His altruistic nature moved him to attempt to release the book without his name on it. However, after much persuasion from his friends and colleagues, they prompted him to leave his name inside the book's front cover on the copyright page so that no one could claim it as their own and make a profit off of his work. Reluctantly, he agreed and released the book with his name and no further contact information on the copyright page. No name on the front cover, no name on the spine of the book, no About the Author section with a picture. This alone proved that he was deciding to practice what he preached, to live what he was teaching in the book by following one of the three major themes, which was love unconditionally. Viktor Frankl did not lead an easy life, yet he did live a life full of meaning. As an upper-class Austrian Jew, teaching and practicing as a neurologist and psychologist in Vienna during World War II, he was given a unique opportunity that almost all other Jews were not offered after Nazi Germany invaded Austria. In 1941, Frankl was offered the rare opportunity to gain a travel visa and leave Nazi-ruled Austria for the United States. Over the following 3-week window, he was given a chance to decide if he should escape the Nazi clutch or to stay in his beloved homeland. He was unsure which choice was better, to ensure safety for him and his wife in the States, or to stay in Vienna, where his position as head of neurology at a local hospital might provide safety to his entire family. Fearing that his sister and his parents might be poorly treated without him in Vienna to protect them, he decided to stay. His 3-week visa expired, and only 9 months later, he and the rest of his family were all deported to the first of 4 concentration camps that Frankl would endure. Over the next 3 years, Frankl lost everything: his mother, his father, his first wife, even his life's work. He had been writing a book on a new psychological therapy that he was developing known as logos therapy, which is the Greek word for the word meaning. In Frankl's own words, he believed that the meaning of life was to make life meaningful. Since meaning changes from person to person and from day to day, he believed that it is up to each of all of us to constantly search out our own meaning for our own life, no matter how much effort it takes. He further pointed out that when we succeed, we turn on one of the largest sources of productive energy that we can ever hope to find in our lifetimes. Yet if we don't even attempt to make movement towards this goal of living our life's purpose, we will fall slowly into emotional darkness and lose the desire or will to live. It is important to remember that the goal is to attempt to put the effort into finding a life of meaning. It is not necessarily to actually live a life of meaning as seen by other people. It is a search for your own personal meaning. Many people unconsciously feel a sense of obligation to live their life solely for the recognition and approval of others. Whereas we will discuss the importance of helping others shortly, it should never come at the destruction of yourself. It is okay to say no to others when it is for the greater good or for your own self-preservation. Being a survivor of 4 different concentration camps over 3 years, Frankl saw up close and personal extraordinary joy in finding and living out their own personal meaning. He also spoke of seeing prisoners give up the fight. He and some of his friends noticed that when a fellow prisoner would lose hope and refuse to get out of bed and work for the day, they would often pull out a cigarette or extra piece of food that they had been hiding and start smoking or eating the small amount of food. He stated that he seemed to watch their life change from focusing on meaning and turn to looking for instant pleasure or comfort at that moment. He and his friends seemed to know that within the next 48 hours or so, the person would quietly fade away into death. With this imprinted on his mind, he realized that it was often more a loss of meaning in the prisoner's life that took their lives than the lack of medicine, food, or water. Luckily for us, Frankl survived and continued his work in helping people after the war. Even after the war, he continued to see the importance of meaning in people's lives. He noticed that those without meaning in their lives would also easily be taken in by anger, depression, and addiction. The loss of meaning created a hole in their lives that they could not seem to fill until they turned their lives around and found meaning in something. He said that it was like despair and sadness would fill the void without the meaning, like a poisonous gas would fill up a room. Yet through helping them find their meaning, logos therapy, he would see the light shine in their eyes once more, filling their lives with a continual source of positive energy. Having been a doctor and psychologist before being forced into the concentration camps, he was given a few small but very helpful benefits that others of the camps were not allowed. Things like an extra portion of food or an extra sick day away from work. These benefits were given to him as a reward for working in the medical clinics of the camps. These small benefits helped him to live for over 3 years instead of the average 8 months that most other prisoners lived. During that time, he found 3 primary sources of meaning. His name for these 3 sources of meaning were purposeful work, love, and courage in the face of difficulty. I have found that when I have shared these ideas with others, they have been able to understand them all with slightly different titles that I like to call Living Your Life's Purpose, Giving Selfless Love, and Enduring Courageously. Living Your Life's Purpose. When Frankl first arrived at the horrible Auschwitz concentration camp, Nazi guards stripped Frankl of his clothes and possessions. This included the book that he had worked on so hard his entire life. Saddened and shocked beyond all belief, he promised himself that he would survive the camps and rewrite the entire book one day. Once, when he was suffering from typhoid fever and on the brink of dying, he started collecting any small scraps of paper he could find. By using his own shorthand writing code, he began the process of rewriting his book. It was this purpose that pulled him through his particular difficult time and gave his life meaning. He knew that his message needed to get out to the world. He knew that his message was unique and that no one else could write what he could with his own personal knowledge, skills, and life experiences. This is what drove him to make it out of the camps alive. It gave his life meaning, something to live for. He knew that without his message, it would be lost forever. Ask yourself now, and don't you dare underestimate yourself. If you were not here today, what task of life's work would be left behind? Seriously, consider what good you bring to the world, or at least what you wish you could bring to the world. Start there. Start by thinking of what you wish you could change in the world. Maybe it's something big that would affect the entire planet. Maybe it's something small to only one person, or maybe a pet. Maybe it's just the simple fact that you could feed your pet and give a good life to that pet. Whatever it is, realize now that your unique voice, your unique experiences are needed. Even if you don't see it right now, you and your life's task are needed. During his time in the death camps, Frankl said that you could see that those who knew that they had a life's purpose for them to fulfill were the ones most likely to survive. So what's your life's purpose that you will live? What will fulfill your life's meaning? If you don't know right now, I recommend that you set out on a quest to discover it. A quest similar to the Knights of the Round Table when they set out on their quest for the Holy Grail. Wake up each day with the goal of having new experiences. If you don't have new experiences, wake up with the goal of finding new meaning in the experiences you are having. This is your mission. This is what you were born to do. So do it. Do it right. Do it right now. Live a life of purpose. I'm so excited to see how you will make this life better. I'm so proud of you for getting this far in the book. And I'm so thrilled to know that you will make a difference in this world. I have faith in you. I really do. I say this as I type with joy in my heart for you, with tears of joy streaming down my face at this moment. as I feel connected to you. I love you, my friend. I'm so, so proud of you and who you are. Giving selfless love. Before the war, Frankel met with a devastated woman. She had already lost one son and had one remaining son that was severely handicapped. Before seeking out Frankel for treatment, she had attempted suicide along with her young son nearby. However, her son had stopped her. Frankel worked to help her find a new meaning in her life by doing what is called reframing. Reframing is helping a person to frame their idea or reality in a different light so that they can see it in a new way. He asked her to imagine herself as an old person and near the end of her life. He encouraged her to look back at her life and imagine that it was full and free of the difficulties of caring for her disabled son. She thought about it for a while and told Frankel that she couldn't see a purpose for the life she lived. She wondered what her life was all for. She felt that her life was a failure. Frankel didn't stop there. He asked her to now imagine a life completely dedicated to taking care of her handicapped son. After a short time of reflection, she told Frankel that she had made her son's life a fuller and more rewarding one. She went on to say that she had made a better human being for her son, and that she could look back peacefully on her own life because it was a life full of meaning. That meaning came from her giving selfless love to her beautiful son. Frankel defined love differently than many others. His understanding of true love was not so much the feeling of being in love, but more of an action that could be demonstrated through the struggle of helping others to succeed. For him, it was so much more. It was the act of seeing the potential in others, just as I see the potential in you reading this book right now. It is the act of elevating all those that you encounter. It's the kind word of a friend during a rough time. It's sitting down and listening to someone. It's helping a child to do something they've never done before. It's helping a friend figure out a business venture. It's giving a sick patient the motivation and courage to find the strength to heal and live another day. Love is an action, not just a feeling. Love is a verb, not a noun. If you lack meaning, wake up every morning and decide who you will help elevate. See them in your mind. Maybe it's one person. Perhaps it's a group of people you want to see whose lives you can make a little bit better. Occupy yourself so much in the work of helping others that you forget your own problems. The more you lose yourself in the service of your fellow man, the more you will find yourself and your life's purpose. Suffer courageously. As we already mentioned, Frankel endured unimaginable amounts of suffering, yet he found a way to overcome the suffering by imagining himself standing on stage in a warm, well-lit lecture hall. He said, "I imagine myself giving a lecture on the psychology of concentration camps, and all that oppressed me at that moment. I became objective, seeing difficulties I suffered from a remote viewpoint. I succeeded somehow in rising above the situation, above the sting of the moment, and I observed them as if they were already of the past." Many others have used their moments of difficulty and suffering as a lesson that improved the world. After Nelson Mandela was put in prison, he later used his suffering to inspire the people of South Africa to forgive one another, work together, and rebuild their country. Mandela showed that by suffering and enduring courageously, his difficulties had a purpose. Frankel once stated that suffering ceases to be suffering once it finds a meaning. Life is unexpected and seldom goes according to plans. However, when we take those uncontrollable and unexpected setbacks and find meaning in them, we transform our suffering of that moment into a strength. We then turn an error into the perfect thing that we needed at that time. There's a saying that I have heard from local leaders ever since I was a child. Come for what you want, leave with what you need. By stepping back from the problem and looking at it objectively, we can find a new frame of mind and meaning to the situation. When we disassociate ourselves for a moment from the emotions, we see our life at that moment in a different light. We learn what we had to learn from the moment, and therefore the sting of the suffering we were enduring decreases or completely disappears. Let me give you an example. Have you ever talked with someone and been completely confused with what they say? Maybe it was something that got you to feel really mad. Maybe it was just a simple disagreement. Whatever it was, there was a misunderstanding. Think about that time. Was the thought on your mind a lot? What changed? What stopped you from worrying or caring about it? More often than not, it was because some bit of information came in that helped you to understand the situation from another point of view. When our mind has made sense of the situation in a different way, when we have learned what we needed to learn from it, the stress and anxiety seem to almost or completely disappear. The next time you feel or believe that you are suffering, ask yourself, how is this valuable? Many times, the greatest value we can find from suffering is how it builds character. We will never get physically stronger by sitting on the sofa all day and eating junk food. When we want to get stronger physically, we must put physical stressors and resistance against our muscles in some way to get stronger. If I wish to become humbler, I will be grateful for the difficulties that make me humble when they come along. If I wish to learn love unconditionally, I will likely have my heart broken first. To see and be thankful for the bright, beautiful light of sunrise, I must first pass through the darkness of night. Many years ago, I was talking with my dear and loved friend, Andrew Davis. I was going through a difficult moment in my life. He had Asperger's, so his ability to be successful with many social interactions was not as good as many of the rest of us. But this also gave him the ability to see things more logically than most of us. One day he asked me a question that changed my life. He said, "Michael, I've known you for years, and I've seen that sometimes you have these very low valleys that you pass through. However, you also have some of the most ridiculously amazing highs on the mountaintops of life. If you could change your life and make it so that the valleys were not so difficult, but that would make the highs not so high too, would you do that?" Tears welled up in my eyes because I knew that I wouldn't. All the pain, all the suffering, all the confusion, all the lack of confidence that I have felt has been necessary to open my eyes to the incredible beauty that exists in the world. It is through the suffering and the facing of it courageously that I have found strength and resilience that is unshaken, never faltering, solid. Where I had difficulty standing, I have become a source of strength for others. By being the person that others can depend on during the challenging times of life, you are gifted with the beauty of seeing someone without hope find hope once again. If you are suffering now, if you are facing difficulties now, if you don't think that life is fair, then I have one word for you: good. Former Special Forces Navy SEAL Jocko Willink told a story once of how he came to be known for this word, good. As a commander of Task Unit Bruiser during the Battle of Ramadi in Iraq, he oversaw the constantly changing and unexpected situations around him. Many of his soldiers would come to him with complaints about what was going on or things that were difficult. He said that he would always respond with one word and one word only: good. Yet he didn't just say it to say it. He truly saw something good in whatever happened. He would look for a way to find a lesson, to find something good in any unpleasant situation. I'd like to challenge you to do the same, to suffer courageously and find the good in anything. Be different from others. Become a person who stands for something. Become the strength that others can depend on the dark and difficult times of life. See the horrible things in life for what they are, lessons that will help you to see an incredibly beautiful world more clearly. Face the difficulties courageously. See the messed up things in life and say the one word that will confound those around you: good. By suffering courageously, your life will find meaning up to the last breath you will take one day. Don't underestimate your greatness and your own strength. The more that you are able to find meaning from day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute, the more likely that when you get to the end of your long, joy-filled, and beautiful life, you'll be proud of the life that you lived. Meaning and responsibility. I just want to point out one more reality of life. In order to live a life of meaning, you will have to take on responsibility. This is true with anything you choose to be your meaning in life. If the meaning of your life is to be rich, you'll need to take on the responsibility of doing what you need to get rich. If the meaning of your life is to be physically fit, you'll need to take on the responsibility of exercising and eating healthy foods. If your life's meaning is to help others, you will need to take on the responsibility of surrounding yourself with people in difficult times. Whatever meaning you wish to add to your life or the lives of others, responsibility will be attached. You are not forced to live a life of meaning and to take on the responsibilities. The alternative to a life of meaning is a life of comfort. In the eyes of Sigmund Freud, he called this a will to pleasure. By seeking out the life with only pleasure, it is not necessary to take on responsibility. You could be completely focused on your own life and the momentary and immediate pleasures of life. But do you really want to? Think of how boring it would be to have Christmas every day. Sure, it sounds good in the short term, but after a while, it would become a nuisance. When we watch movies, we never watch a movie with the hero in it from beginning to end. We always watch a person who had an okay life, but at some point during the movie, they come across a difficulty that they find the strength to get over. That is what excites us at the base of who we are. To find the strength to overcome something and not simply sit on our butts for our entire lives. It's absolutely a good thing to relax and take time for ourselves. However, we all feel an internal drive to achieve our own self-directed meaning of our life. Don't forget that to have a life of meaning will require us to choose to take on responsibility. You can either have a life of meaning or a life void of responsibility. It's your choice. It's my personal belief that this life is not a test as taught in some religions. This life is a lesson, and our bodies are needed to help us learn the lessons. We need our imperfect bodies because it helps us to experience the difficulties of this world. We learn from the suffering. We learn from the difficulties. We become stronger through it. There is no honor in being someone that has no ability to do harm, that does not do harm. The honor comes from the person's ability, maybe even their desire to do harm, yet find the inner discipline, strength, and integrity to not do harm. This is where the beautiful realization of you and your own strength resides. Although you have faced difficult times, although you have possibly thought of giving up, you have not. You have lasted one more breath. You have lasted one more page of this book. You have somehow pulled together some of that strength, discipline, and integrity to finish this book, and for that, I give you permission to be proud of yourself. Be proud of this accomplishment. Find a way to trust me and know that you should, can, and will be proud of many more things that you will accomplish in your life. Embrace whatever meaning you can find, no matter how large or small it might be. Take the responsibility required for you to fulfill that meaning and know that I have faith in your ability to live a beautiful, meaningful life.